Okay, I think we're ready to go with the next session. So my name is Tate Greenhalgh. I am the Senior National Consultant for Interpretation at the National Trust. We've been hearing quite a bit this morning already about the National Trust has been querying since around 2016, 2017. That's still very much in progress. And we're interested now also in people who visit our places and the experience they have, but also the online environment and how that can be often a more inclusive space. Not everyone wants to or feels comfortable visiting National Trust sites still. So how can we use online spaces to be more creative, more inclusive, involve more people, different perspectives, different voices? So we've been doing a bit of work with Wikipedia, looking at representation of National Trust sites, stories, histories, collections, but we haven't looked at that content through a queer lens before. And so I'm really excited to get all of your brains on doing that today and start to show us what benefit that can bring. I'm really interested in public benefit. I think of interpretation much more beyond things like labels in a museum style to any way that people can connect to and make sense of, make meaning from place and experience, connecting to heritage, whatever that means to you. So I'm really pleased to hand over to our experts here today. So online, we've got Leah Emery and Jill Ryan. Leah is a digital skills Wikimedian at Wikimedia UK, and then Jill Ryan is a Wikipedian. And then in the room, we've got Wikipedians Lucy Hinney and Richard Neville, and they can introduce their work and give you all the technical details.
Thank you very much. I'll keep it brief from my part, but I'm involved with the Connected Heritage Project, and we do a lot of work with heritage organisations, helping them share their knowledge and expertise through Wikipedia to reach a very large audience. So very excited to be here today. You, Lucy?
Yeah, hi, I'm Lucy Hinney, she, her pronouns. In true Wikimedian style, I'm actually just editing the slides live because I realised that we'd left the link out. So that's why I'm looking a bit antisocial and like a stereotypical Wikimedian hunched over my computer looking angry. So hopefully that update has come through. But yeah, Queer Britain is an institution and a cause close to all our hearts at Wiki, and we're excited to be here and talk to you a little about what we can do with Wiki, what you might want to do with Wiki, and how we can support you in doing that. So yeah, it's great to be here. And I think that's my cue to start. So we're rocking a few screens, three. So I've got my speaker notes here, I've got my slides here, and there's a whole Zoom going on. So bear with me as I kind of look in all directions but the camera probably. Here we go. So, hey, this is us. Look at that. Here we are, here for culture. So it's, like I say, it's absolutely lovely to be here with you. What I was adding to the slides, and will come up in a couple of slides time, is a bit.ly link for those of you who are here. One of the things about doing a hybrid training and not in person is that we lose the function to just link dump in the chat. So the bit.ly will have all the links that you need in it, and we'll put that up at the lunch break as well. What's most important though is really just being here in the room, engaging, listening to kind of what we're saying and asking questions. You can ask questions at any point. It may be that we have to park it because we're answering it later. It may be that you ask a question that absolutely blows our minds and stuns us into silence. If that happens, we'll deal with it when it comes. And there may be things that are unclear. We've got quite a short space of time with you today, so we'll try and get through as much as we can within that. Oh, I love these. Sorry, I haven't had one of these since before the pandemic, and whoever is in charge of it, you're gonna have to search me on the way out because I might take it with me. So is there a light? Oh no. Oh no, okay, good. There's my light. Okay, so friendly space policy. At Wiki, we operate under friendly space policy at all times. So the goal of the session today is to create an encouraging space for collective learning. with something that requires intentional behaviour, so being conscious of and accountable for the effect of what we do and say on others. Obviously, Queer Britain is a very safe and friendly space, but just to reiterate that we respect our experiences and yours, and we recognise that we can't do this wiki work without people like you, without people who are willing to learn and engage. So by being here, we're holding each other accountable for a brave and friendly space. So today we're going to look at what wiki is, how we can and should use it, and what this means for marginalised groups and queer histories in particular. We will train you and enable you to make positive changes on wiki for the better. Because we're on a smaller time frame today, and because lunch is in the middle, and believe me, we know the importance of lunch, there may be a bit more showing rather than doing today than we would usually have. There will be chances to ask us how to do things. We will try and exemplify things when we can, but what we're going to leave you with is a whole bundle of resources and ways to get in touch and be supported through your wiki journey. So if you're sitting thinking, I have no idea what is happening, I don't feel that I've grasped this at all, there is plenty of recourse to come back, talk to us, and go over these things again. So please don't feel completely ostracized by that. That's not a space that we want to create. So this is our timetable for today. Introduction to Wikipedia and getting ready to edit. That's going to be me taking you up to lunch with that. Then we have a lovely lunch break in the middle there. And then when we get back, Richard and I are going to take you through a bit of live editing and talking about how to choose tasks and what you can do on Wiki. You don't have to write articles from scratch every time you edit Wiki. In fact, we encourage you not to do that because it can be a really intimidating and precarious thing for a new wiki editor to do, because it's there that you might come up against some of the bigger hurdles. I had added something to this slide that was the bit.ly link, but clearly it did not take, so that's, you know, depressing. But anyway, here we are, we'll add it at the lunch break. So we're going to take you through an introduction to Wikipedia. This will be run by myself and Richard. I'm going to shout out to our colleague, Dr. Sarah Thomas up in Scotland, for the basis of these slides that we use for our trainings. So Richard and I are here for you today from Wikimedia UK. Wikimedia UK is the national chapter of the Wikimedia Foundation, which is the international charity organisation that runs all things wiki. The Wikimedia vision is to imagine a world in which every single human being can freely share in the sum of all knowledge, and that's the commitment we work towards. We're not there yet. Will we ever be there? That's really hard to say because the sum of all human knowledge is changing every moment, but I think it's a good ethos to work towards, and incorporating queer and marginalised histories is a huge part of this. These are all, or indeed most, of the Wikimedia projects. Using your fingers, how many of these do you recognise just looking at the screen there? I work for Wiki and I've got 3. 1 or 2, yeah, 3, 5 at the back. Nice. You can come and do the training. So the main ones that we'll be working with today are Wikipedia, and we'll be doing a bit of work on Wikimedia Commons, using Wikimedia Commons materials. Commons is where free and openly sourced images are stored. The others cover vast swathes of kinds of knowledge you can share on Wiki. Wikibooks is like a Project Gutenberg. Wikisource is very similar to Wikibooks, but it deals more with kind of older source materials where you might want to see the text in its original form as well. My favorite tip is Wikivoyage, which is basically a free Lonely Planet. So if you're going on holiday somewhere and want some tips, go to Wikivoyage. If it's super out of date, you can update it when you get home, which post-pandemic, a lot of them are. So you can see there's a wide spectrum of things that Wiki works with, but for us today, we'll be looking at Wikipedia. Wikipedia is volunteer-led. There are 314 language versions of Wiki, which seems like a lot till you think about how many languages there are in the world. Then it starts to seem just a little bit smaller. English Wiki is the largest. A lot of the imbalances and power structures that we see in the world, as in the world, so on Wiki. So this is something that we're really, really cognizant of and really want to change. Interesting fact, Welsh Wiki has achieved gender parity. There are equal amounts of women, men represented on Wikipedia. I don't know what the stats are for non-binary folks, but compared to English Wiki, Wales is very much ahead of the curve. So if any of you here are Welsh speakers, I thoroughly recommend getting involved in Wiki Cymru. So Wikipedia is the encyclopedia anyone can edit. You've all probably used it today. If you've Googled something, if you've asked Alexa something, if you've spoken to Siri, you'll have interacted with Wikipedia, because that is where a lot of the data for these services is pulled from. It powers smart speakers, Google search, AI, and VR. It's read 22 billion times a month, which is quite astonishing when you think about it. And public trust in Wikipedia is actually quite high. There's been a bit of a shift from the days of Wikipedia is very unreliable to it being the main port of call for people to look at. Something that's quite interesting to do, though do it with a pinch of salt, is to go onto Wiki and it shows you the top 20 articles that have been searched for in the last week. Really interesting to see. You can usually see which TV has gone viral, what's been going on in the world, and any kind of celebrities who've passed away or done something notable. So it's really, for me, it's quite striking to see what is reflected in what people are looking for. So this is an example of cultural heritage and ways in which Wiki has actually really benefited the digital presence of a museum. So National Museum of Scotland, not exactly a small museum, but the work that we're about to describe was done a few years ago before the kind of digital boom and the pandemic. So these chaps are at the Lewis Chessmen. They're one of the most famous artifacts in the National Museum of Scotland. They're very cool. If you ever go to Scotland, they're actually quite fun to go and have a look at. They were discovered in various places around Edinburgh, I think, and there's all sorts of mythology tied up in them. National Museum of Scotland took 30 images of these chessmen, so not a huge amount, 30 images that they took and allowed to be put onto Wikimedia Commons. From that, a new article was created about the chessmen. This was done through advocacy by Wikimedia UK and a resident who was working in Scotland at that time. And the uploads were done by museum staff who were upskilled to be able to work with Wiki Commons. So from the get-go, these images became wildly popular. In the first month, we had over 30,000 views of the image alone, not even the article as well. Across the next 9 months, there were over 600,000 views. So this is something that really tapped into an item that people across the world really wanted to see, and had been placed on Wikipedia in such a way that its impact was very, very grand indeed. In terms of queer representation on Wiki, we're not where we should be, and I'm going to hold my hands up to that, because I think that it's something that we're working towards, and we're working towards making Wiki generally a place where all types of people feel welcome. If you were to come to a Wiki event, say 10 or 15 years ago, because I really hate to be the bearer of bad news, Wiki's over 20 years old, that's how old I am. It's definitely making me feel my age. There has been a shift in the kinds of demographics that we see in editors and people working with Wiki. In Wikimedia UK, the gender balance, the kind of balance of different protected characteristics is quite strong. However, we are an exception, we're not the rule. So there are bigger movements throughout Wiki to get people involved. One is the Wikimedia LGBT+ user group. It's been around since 2012, it's over 10 years old. It's global, it's intersectional. What it does is it exists to encourage the use of Wiki and promote it as a way to strengthen LGBTQ+ community online, and it creates and expands content through content drives. The impact it's had is that it's increased participation globally, it's increased the visibility of LGBT+ histories, and it has coordinated other projects and other kind of drives for content over those 11 years. We've also got Wiki Loves Pride, and Wiki Loves Pride is an event. So it runs, I think it's it's once a year, and it's supported by Wikimedia LGBT+. What happens is, during the period of about a month between June and October, dates are to be confirmed for this year, there are drives for organizations, for Wikipedia users, there are lists of articles that need to be created or improved. People are encouraged to get involved, and there will be training events based around this as well. So this is very much like an event that you would take part in for Wiki Loves Pride. So that's another nice initiative. Wiki Loves is a framework for a lot of content drives. We have Wiki Loves Monuments. So if you like taking pictures of castles and National Trust properties, Wiki Loves Monuments would be great. We also have Wiki Loves Earth, which I call the cute animal drive because it's usually people taking pictures of cute things that they've seen locally. So keep an eye out if you're into photography. These kind of things are a really good way of improving content and getting things onto Wiki. Finally, this one was actually new to me. I found out about this a couple of weeks ago, Queering Wikipedia. So Queering Wikipedia looks specifically at wiki entries. So it's been an active user group for the past couple of years, and they're holding a conference next in May, 2 months away. It's a conference series that includes all wiki projects, but it's really getting deep into how do we start to queer this knowledge system? How do we start to get in there and make sure that queer representation is an integral part of what we do? It represents diverse populations and communities of sexuality and gender identities and expressions across the world. It's very early days for the project, but there will be links to Queering Wikipedia in your pack today. And it's something that I would really encourage you to get involved with if you can, because if we can lift this project, it could take Wiki in really good directions. So one of the things we like to talk about at Wikimedia UK, and particularly in Connected Heritage, which is the project we've been working on for the last almost 2 years now, is the idea that for those of us who work in cultural institutions and deal with cultural properties and knowledge, what Wiki allows us to do is move from this idea of being a guardian, where we're holding things, where we're curating them to be static, to a distributor. So looking at improving access, improving engagement, and making it more dynamic. So that's an idea that we've held really close to our hearts throughout this. And I think particularly in my own research, when it comes to looking at queer histories, I'm a medievalist originally. I'm now a Wikimedian. I don't know how I got here. That's another presentation. One of the things I'm working on is a paper about James VI and First. Guess what I'm writing about. And one of the things that I've noticed is there's a tendency to hold histories of established national figures very statically. We don't want to reinterpret them. We don't want to go in, look under the hood. Even in cases when things are very obvious, like James VI and First queerness is writ large across all these historical documents, we don't want to move it from the static place that we've held it for so long. And Wiki and moving towards dynamic engagement is a place where we can really start to see these things come to light in a more interesting way. We've been lucky to work with a lot of interns. One of the organisations we've worked with is the Mixed Museum, which is another London-based museum without walls, which deals with the history of mixed race folks throughout the UK. It's run by the amazing Shamian Caballero. And we had 2 interns there last year, and they gave us some amazing food for thought. And Zaid, one of the interns, said, what if the Wikipedia page for your desired topic is skeletal and incomplete? Or worse still, what if that Wikipedia page doesn't even exist? And today we're really going to hope to give you the tools to think about Wikipedia in a critical way, to think about where the gaps are and what we can do to address them. Oh, content gaps. Yeah, okay, so Wikipedia projects are not neutral. Who edits and what they choose to focus on really, really matters. So what you can't see under the Zoom sign is that, let's just say, depressing statistic of Wikipedia editors are men. Most of these men are white. Less than 1 in 5 biographies about women on English Wikipedia. So if every 5 biographies, less than 1 is about a woman or a non-binary person. Even fewer transgender non-conforming representations. Racial bias is persistent and the knowledge is hugely Western-centric. So trying to reframe things on Wiki to look at them without our position of Western privilege is a real challenge. So these are the key issues that we keep coming back to and keep coming up against in our work as Wikimedians. Editor gaps. I haven't actually seen this diagram before. Leah must have added it. So what we can see here is significant underrepresentation for Black British and Asian or Asian British contributors living in Britain. So that one there, that's 87% of editors among British population. No, 87% amongst the British population are white Amongst British editors, that's 85%. With Asian, we see here that it's 7% of the population, 2.4% of editors, mixed or multiple 2.4%, other 2.4%. Black British, we're hovering down at about 0.0%, and that is from a community insight survey in 2021. So that's a significant underrepresentation from non-white editors, which is something else to bear in mind in terms of how we represent ourselves on Wiki. So how do we fill the gaps? By inviting, training, and empowering people with underrepresented experiences, cultures, languages, and identities to share knowledge and collections in an ethical and compassionate way. This is shaping the narrative. This is helping us to expand what we can do. It's harnessing your existing skills and interests. I bet every single one of you has a nerdy interest. I kind of want to ask you all what they are, but I'm not going to, because we'll just get distracted. But you could just edit Wiki about that. You don't have to go on and change the world. It would be lovely if you went on and changed the world, but if what you really want to do is go in and correct incorrect information about an obscure series of books that you're really, really passionate about, we can teach you how to do that as well. What we want to do is harness your existing skills and interests. It's non-hierarchical, the way that we train and the way that Wiki works. We try and impose this idea of a non-hierarchical way of doing things. We're all learning as we go on this journey together. Oh, that sounded so cheesy. We're all learning as we edit Wiki. We're looking at open access to knowledge that truly describes the sum of human understanding, because human understanding shouldn't be pale, male and stale. It should be rounded, it should be colourful, and it should be vibrant, and queer histories are a huge part of that. We want to open up collections to wider audiences. So if you're working with an organisation or an institution that has collections that deserve a wider audience, bring them to us and we will show you what you can do with them. And we want to emphasize most of all that Wiki is an active tool for change. 22 billion views a month. Think about what you can do if you can just correct that one thing that's annoying you, or if you can go on and add a piece of information that you're able to verify and share that with people across the world. And you can do it all while you're sitting on your sofa, which is great. Or at least I like that. So we're coming now to the 5 pillars of Wiki. The fact that it's an encyclopedia, it should inhabit a neutral point of view. It offers free content that anyone can use, edit, and distribute. It should be built on pillars of respect and civility, but we will give you the tools for what to do if that is not the case in your experience. And this is the most confusing one. I kind of want to change this slide actually, because we say no firm rules. And that's true because Wiki is governed by consensus, but we're working with a consensus that's been built over the last 20 years. So change is possible, but it can take some time. So no firm rules, but strong guidelines, which we will talk to you about today. But there is always that room for potential change. So let's get started. Slide am I on, Richard? Am I?
That is slide 22.
Great, okay, I'm still going. So this is the point where if we were training with your organization or if we were doing a kind of longer Wikithon, we would take you through the process of creating an account and so on and so forth. Today will be a little bit different. Is anyone in the room, how many of you have Wiki accounts? How many were able to make? I'm going to take that as a win. That's great, thank you. If you are able and would like to, you can log into Wiki just now. If not, feel free to watch and learn. I know it's not the most dynamic thing. I'll go and stand over here because then it's a bit like I've done something dynamic when actually I've just moved to the outside of the room. There you go. Maybe I'll move back. I don't know, I'm going to keep you guessing. If you're logged in, log into the dashboard. You'll get instructions about this in your pack afterwards. The dashboard is a really useful way of tracking how impactful an event has been. So if you are thinking of running a Wikithon and you're thinking of perhaps trying to make a case to funders of like, you know, Wiki activity is actually really impactful, we did X amount, dashboard is a really good way of doing that. So today, in a surprise to nobody, we're going to learn about improving Wikipedia. So I'm going to take you through the building blocks of an article. When I train in person, sometimes I like to, if there is a they're very rare now, flip charts. They used to be ubiquitous, and now you have to pay like £8 to borrow one from a training centre. Sometimes, not here, I'm not here. Sometimes I like to ask people to draw a Wikipedia article, which sounds a bit bonkers, but what people tend to draw, because if you think about it, you can see one in your mind's eye, is rectangles. So there's a rectangle from the top right, there's another rectangle here, and then there's some like rectangle blobs there. I'm going to talk to you about those rectangle blobs and what they mean. So here we have standard Wikipedia article about the amazing Mary Barber. Mary Barber, as I can see from the top here, was a Scottish political activist. She was a polymath. She had so many different roles and titles in her life. She was a prominent Scottish socialist. So she's a really, really cool lady. And you can read about her on Wikipedia. Her photo has actually changed since we did the screen grab, so that's something. So what we're looking at here, these three rectangles. So the one along the top there, that is what we call the lead paragraph. Your lead paragraph is like, I hate using this phrase, an elevator pitch. It's kind of short and punchy and tells you why this person, place, or thing is notable, what you might want to know about them in a very, very brief format. On the right, big rectangle is what we call an info box. And in the middle there is an image. So the big info box, biographical info boxes tend to follow a similar pattern. Born, died, nationality, occupation, known for, spouses, if it's a woman, who were they married to, because that's probably the most notable thing about it, and any children they might have had. And the image will be taken from Wikimedia Commons, so it's copyright, it's under Creative Commons license, where it can be used freely and distributed widely. So this is a well-formed top of a Wikipedia article. I'm just going to go back one. If you see up at the top there, we've got those wee tabs. There's two on the side, article talk, and then across we've got read, edit, edit source. I'm saying this, I was sitting at the back earlier, I couldn't really read and my eyesight's quite bad. So trust me that there are little tabs at the top there. And guess what, we're going to zoom in on them. The one on the left, the talk, that takes you to the talk page. The talk page of an article, if you're like me and you live for the drama, the talk page is where the drama is hiding, because this is where people argue about what should and shouldn't go on a page. It's the place where people, you can see questions people might have asked about a source they're using, questions people might have asked about, I'm not sure whether or not to include this, have I phrased this right? It's usually a place for civilized debate, but it can sometimes get a little bit salty. Not if you're behaving well, but sometimes. On the right-hand side, you can see view history. Everything on Wiki has a history, and you can see it right from the day that article was created. So there's articles on there from like 2001, 2002. You can trace the history of that article all the way back and see where the changes were made. This is also a place where you can see sometimes people debating aspects of an article and whether it should or shouldn't be put in certain terms or other, which can sometimes have an impact, I feel, on queer histories most of all, because some people don't like acknowledging, reframing, looking back on how someone was perceived then versus how we perceive them now. So that's quite a crucial tab, I think, if it's something that you're interested in. This is the body of a wiki article. You can see the different paragraphs here. Up in the top there, Kilbarchan, place in Scotland, very Scottish name. It's actually in blue. You can't see it quite so well, just the way that the screen is rendering. But if something is on blue, it's what we call a wiki link. You've all fallen into Wikipedia rabbit holes. I know you have, because you're human beings and you're alive. So you've definitely fallen into Wikipedia rabbit holes. Clicking on a blue link takes you to another wiki article. So Kilbarchan is a fairly notable place in Scotland. I mean, it's a town. I think I've been once, but it has a Wikipedia page. Other things here, it mentions that her husband was an engineer, that they lived in Govan, that she died in the Southern General Hospital. So all of these things have wiki pages that are relevant. The little numbers that you can see, familiar to anyone who's read kind of non-fiction or referenced text, these will take you to the citations on Wiki. So Wiki is built on robust citations. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later with some slides that have animals on them. So that's coming. So yeah, interwiki links, citations, super important. If your article doesn't have those citations, big alarm bells. That means that the article is possibly not very reliable. At the bottom there, this is public enemy number 2 for Wikipedia rabbit holes. These are your categories. Categories are fantastic for queer history because even if the article itself doesn't spend a lot of time dwelling on aspects of somebody's gender or sexuality, you can include them in categories like LGBTQ plus activists, LGBTQ plus personalities from area, LGBTQ figures from era. So there are ways in which you can weave people into this broader picture of community, and categories is a really neat way of doing that. When we started this project, the Connected Heritage Project, Leah and I got really excited about categories and the potential there to kind of draw people together in a way that they haven't been before. So those are your building blocks of a wiki article. You've got a lead paragraph, images, info box, references, categories, wiki links, top page, and edit history. That is what makes a robust and useful Wikipedia article. I think I'm handing over to Richard now. I'm going to walk over there. I told you I was going to go to the other side. And Richard's going to talk you through some aspects of how we actually edit before we break for lunch.
Absolutely. So I'll try and keep this one fairly brief. We've had a good summary already. There are a couple of different ways of editing Wikipedia. There's a source code editor, which looks like HTML, and there's a visual editor, which is much more friendly. It's like using WordPress, writing an email, or Microsoft Word. And that's what we're going to be concentrating on today. It's a really good way to start off. When you're exploring Wikipedia, you'll find that pretty much every single page has an edit button at the top. And if you click on it, you're able to start changing it straight away. And the interface, when you're in the visual editor, will look something a little bit like this. You've got a toolbar at the top, but the article will essentially still look very similar. It'll be laid out in pretty much the same way. You can actually place your cursor and start typing. So these buttons are all quite useful. The side button is the most important, but let's start going from left to right. We have here undo and redo. So it's like using a word processor. This drop-down menu here allows you to create headings or just tell the editor that it's a regular paragraph kind of text. This drop-down menu, the A, which is underlined and it's in italics, allows you to do a little bit of formatting. So bold, underline, strike through, which I don't think I've actually ever seen used on Wikipedia. In theory, you could. We don't really do much that kind of thing. Bold is usually just the very first sentence. We bold the subject of the article. Italics, it's usually just book titles or stuff like that. We don't actually use it for emphasis, by and large. There are lots of generalizations here. Wikipedia is a big place with more than 6 million articles in English. There are always exceptions, but this is how it generally is. The chain link icon allows you to create links between Wikipedia pages. That's a really good way of creating a web of information. So that if you think someone needs just a little bit more context on a topic, it could be a place, could be another person, you create a wiki link so readers can quickly dip in and explore a bit more, or maybe go off on a complete tangent and go down that rabbit hole. The cite button is really very important. It is going to be the most important button you see on here, aside from edit and publish changes. The reason for that is whenever you add information to Wikipedia, you should include a reference so people can see where the information has come from. Click on that will allow you to actually do that. And it's quite a straightforward interface. It's even got an automated option to take some of the heavy lifting out of it. We've got options for bullet points and numbered lists, which is terribly exciting. You do occasionally find them on Wikipedia. The insert drop-down menu allows you to add images and some useful templates as well. Images are the most exciting of those. You can also do tables, but they are generally more hassle than they're worth, to be honest. And special characters, that's very useful if you're doing stuff which isn't covered on a standard keyboard. So that is the editing interface. And off on the right-hand side, you would have a blue Publish Changes button. So that once you've made your change, you just click on that and it goes live pretty much immediately. So we're going to very briefly show you how to create a user page on Wikipedia. As you go around Wikipedia, if you're logged in, your interface should look something a little like this. For those at the back of the room, in the top right, when you're logged in, you've got a few different buttons to when you're not logged in. Instead of saying create account, it gives you the username you've picked and a couple of icons as well, which allows you to explore different aspects of Wikipedia and change your experience, your interface. But let's focus on that username. So if you click on your name in the top right, it should take you to something that looks a little bit like this. It's a brand new feature on Wikipedia, and it's kind of your own personal homepage. The point of this is it gives you some suggestions of how to get started with editing. I'm kind of going to skim past it really. By all means, do explore it, but I want to show you how to set up a user page. And it's this second tab on the top left. And you can see it's in red. Red links mean the page you're trying to reach doesn't exist yet. So if you see red links in Wikipedia articles, it means that it's linking to a Wikipedia page which doesn't exist yet. So it's an opportunity to create something new. But for us, we're going to concentrate on the user page. It's kind of a place to explain a bit about your motivation for Wikipedia, to say what kind of thing you're interested in. And it's a good way of kind of showing to other Wikipedia editors that you're part of Wikipedia, really. So it's kind of this social signal that you've understood some of the processes of Wikipedia and you want to take part. So some people will have tons and tons of text here. You only need a sentence, really. And a good principle is not to overshare. So here we are, we're in edit mode. Clicks on that red link, which said user page, and it should drop you into the edit mode immediately. If it doesn't look like this, what you want to do is look out for a little pencil icon, should be on the right-hand side. And if you click on that, it gives you a drop-down menu, allowing you to toggle between wiki text editor, or labeled source code, and the visual editor. So if it doesn't look quite like this, you can find this interface. So if you have been following along with that, you've clicked on your name at the top of the screen and then clicked on user page, you're able to create a user page where you're basically explaining to Wikipedians who you are. Now, there's no need to overshare with that. A sentence is plenty. But what's really useful as well is using the insert button to add a template, which basically will tell other Wikipedians that you are new to Wikipedia. And in theory, it should mean that if you cross paths with any other Wikipedia editors, they are a bit more friendly. In theory, everyone is of course meant to be friendly, but it's helpful to have a reminder that you're dealing with someone who's brand new to Wikipedia. So if you follow this step-by-step guide, that will set up your brand new profile page on Wikipedia. And it's kind of a slightly behind the scenes page on Wikipedia. So everything is publicly visible, but by and large, readers won't stumble across your user page. It's very much for other Wikipedia editors. On my own user page, I explain my links to organizations, what subject areas I'm interested in, and so on. But if you go to your user page, and while you're in edit mode, click the insert button in the toolbar, select the template option from the drop-down menu, and you'll be presented with a pop-up box. And there's a field you can type in. You start typing, "This is a new user." Select the link that appears, click Add Template. then click Insert. Basically, follow the chain of blue buttons. And then that will add kind of this box to your user page saying that I'm a brand new user. Once you've done that, click on the blue Publish Changes button in the top right. You'll have another pop-up box. We love pop-up boxes on Wikipedia. It's a good way of introducing more information. And it will prompt you to include an edit summary. That's where you basically explain the change you've just made. It's really good to get into the habit of including edit summaries. It's one of those signals as well to other Wikipedia editors that you get how things work. And once you've included an edit summary, such as created user page, doesn't have to be terribly long, click the blue Publish Changes button. And there we go. That's what the user page looks like. We've got a sentence of text. There's your Publish Changes button. And once that is done, you have made, assuming you've not edited before, you have made your very first edit to Wikipedia. So we are going along quite quickly. How are we doing for time, do you think, Lucy?
We're 4 minutes before lunch, so I think we're bang on.
All right. I will quickly then talk us through some of the policies, ideas. Ideas is a more fun way of putting it. Behind Wikipedia. Oh, it's policy. Right. So Wikipedia is a place where you can ignore all rules. However, there are some which are useful to keep in mind. So conflict of interest, notability, reliable sources, dealing with copyrighted material, verifiability, neutral point of view, and no original research. So we start off with the marmot of notability. Notability is very important because that's how Wikipedia decides what topics get individual standalone pages on Wikipedia. What we're looking for is significant coverage in reliable sources that are independent of the subject. So essentially, if you can find a couple of different sources which aren't directly affiliated with the thing, whether it's the person or the place, that's a good indicator that something's notable and should have a standalone Wikipedia page. There are some caveats to that. For example, if you have a guidebook to a historic site, perhaps not independent as such, but that is still very much a reliable source because there has been so much research that's gone into it. But for notability, we need several reliable sources to demonstrate something is notable. Then we have the reliable sources raccoon. So reliable sources are all important to Wikipedia. In theory, every single piece of information on Wikipedia should have a reliable source to back it up. Theory is very important there. You will find stuff on Wikipedia which doesn't have sourcing, but it should do. As we are starting out, we want to make sure that we always include reliable sources when we add information. That way we can be confident that we're not going to get our stuff reverted. So we need to make sure that Wikipedia is based on reliable and published sources, and make sure that all majority and significant minority views on a topic are documented in its Wikipedia page. That relates to neutral point of view. And if there are no reliable sources about a topic, essentially, you can't write about it on Wikipedia, which sometimes means that Wikipedia tends to be behind the curve on certain subjects. We need those sources to exist. We can't just shortcut the process and put the information straight into Wikipedia. And while that can be frustrating, it is a good thing because it means that we're ending up with lots of different sources of information available to people as a result. Just that Wikipedia sometimes ends up being a bit late to the party there. So what is a reliable source? It kind of varies, but as a very rough guide, academic textbooks, broadsheets newspapers, published non-fiction books, peer-reviewed journals, stuff that's all been carefully researched and has some editorial control behind it is generally considered to be reliable sourcing. I would also add into that websites of organizations. So museums, especially, they're going to be reliable sources. We don't use tabloid newspapers. Typically, we don't use self-published sources unless it's coming from an expert on the subject. And we don't use hearsay or personal conversations or personal communications. So if you happen to be in an email thread with someone who's very knowledgeable about a subject and they say something really useful, you can't unfortunately add that to Wikipedia unless there's a source which has been published to back it up. So that's a very rough guide to reliable sourcing. Now, we have the salamander of systemic bias. Wikipedia is very much a reflection of the world around us. It has a whole load of biases kind of inadvertently built into its content, but there are lots of things we can do to address that. So being aware of it means that we can look for underrepresented topics and start writing them back into Wikipedia. We can also be aware of stuff like citation justice. It's not just the pages themselves which are biased, but we're probably going to be relying on sources which are easier to find and may tend to be pale mail and stale. So if we're aware of particular researchers or their work or particular voices, we can actually start to write them back into Wikipedia by using them as references. And looking at different ways of knowing around a topic, so it doesn't have to be exclusively stuff from a particular kind of source. It doesn't have to be solely academic works. We need to be confident that something is reliable, but this is something which the Wikimedia movement is trying to get to grips with. Like, how do we start to integrate oral history into Wikipedia? How do we use that as a source? So it is an ongoing issue for the movement, and one we're very aware of. But we don't have any solutions just yet. So what you can do is keep an eye out for where topics or people are underrepresented, whether as things that should be written in Wikipedia articles, or it could be using them as references. So making sure that Wikipedia is diverse from top to bottom. The references can be seen as the foundation, and on that you build the Wikipedia articles. You can't just kind of, it needs to go throughout with that metaphor before it collapses. So we have the neutral point of view, 9-banded armadillo, which, my goodness, that is a mouthful.
We were tired. It was difficult.
Wikipedia strives to be neutral in its content. I think strives is very important there because I don't believe anything can be neutral in the way that Wikipedia aims to be. Perhaps a better way of saying it is that Wikipedia aims to be representative of all significant viewpoints. So if you look at the Wikipedia page on the moon landings, you will find that it doesn't spend much time on the conspiracy theories about it. They're kind of relegated to the foot of the page. But if you look at the lead section, those summary paragraphs, the really important stuff about the subject, you don't find those niche views there. So Wikipedia represents lots of different views, tries to do so without editorial bias and without taking sides. So hopefully you should be able to go to a Wikipedia page and not leave it feeling like someone has an axe to grind. And neutrality is actually quite difficult on a large scale. For example, Wikipedia has significant imbalances in its biographies, already touched on earlier. But we're at least aware of these issues, and so steadily working towards addressing that. Right, how many more? Ooh, I'll speed up because it's now gone one. So we try and write with an encyclopedic tone. So that is something which is factual, basically a little bit dry, tries to be neutral. So we're quite careful about language and how things are presented. and it represents what's already known. So we're relying on published, reliable sources. And we avoid exaggeration, speculation, and coming up with new conclusions. Even if something seems really obvious, if that conclusion isn't published somewhere else, we can't include it in Wikipedia. So it might be a good reason to find somewhere else to publish it first. Right, dealing with conflict of interest. We are represented by the very helpful capybara in a fetching purple harness. Conflict of interest arises on Wikipedia when you're writing about an organization you're affiliated with, or someone you know, such as a family member or friend. Now, we simplify this by saying you really want to avoid that where possible. But we appreciate that sometimes there are situations where there is something which needs to be fixed and you are the best person to do it because no one else has done it yet. So we do discourage conflict of interest editing. And if you are stepping into that area, people are expected to disclose it. So explain what the conflict of interest is. So for example, thankfully I don't have a Wikipedia page, but if I did, I could use the talk page to explain if there's an error to the Wikipedia article and what change I would like making as a result. I would need to bring reliable sources to evidence that. But the way you want to deal with conflicts of interest is basically setting up discussions with the Wikipedia community. The talk pages are really important for that. And it builds trust with the community as well. We've seen people and organizations edit Wikipedia in good faith on topics they're involved with, and they've got their fingers burnt because the Wikipedian response is very often default to, you can't do that because it's a conflict of interest. It's where the talk pages are so important because you can actually set up a dialogue and then Wikipedians will understand, they're not doing this because they want to, I don't know, place adverts on Wikipedia or airbrush history. They have valid points to make about the information that needs to be changed, it's out of date, or there's some new information that's come through, and they're acting in Wikipedia's best interests as well as theirs. It's the two do coincide. And so the key point about conflict of interest is avoid it if you can. If you can't avoid it, use talk pages to discuss things. And we have a really good summary of that. If you, it's a Batman principle.
I wrote it. It's really good.
Who can edit the Wikipedia page about Batman? If you are a Bat fan, that's fine. It's fine to be keen on something. It's fine to like a thing and write about it on Wikipedia. If you are a researcher who specializes in Batman studies, that's great too. You're very well informed. You don't have to be an expert to edit Wikipedia, but it adds a hell of a lot to Wikipedia pages when we can tap into that expertise. Now, there are some people who shouldn't be editing the Wikipedia page. Batman himself, it's that conflict of interest. It's difficult to be objective about yourself. And he shouldn't get his alter ego, Bruce Wayne, involved, because that could appear duplicitous. Alfred probably shouldn't be involved since he has a close relationship with Batman as well. So again, difficult to be objective. And on a very related note, if you are a mortal enemy of Batman, you shouldn't be editing his Wikipedia page either. It's all about trying to be objective. But what if Wayne Enterprises has an employee who's trying to add information about Batman? Well, maybe. It kind of depends. And it depends very much as well how they go about it. They would definitely want to use a talk page to explain the situation. They couldn't go whitewashing Batman's page. So there are grey areas, definitely, which is very fitting for the DC universe. So to wrap up this particular section, we want to make sure that if we're writing about brand new topics, that they are notable. If something isn't notable or doesn't have that source material to demonstrate it just yet, you can still write people and topics into other Wikipedia pages, and that is very valuable. So if someone or something isn't yet in a position to have its own Wikipedia page, you can add it elsewhere still. Always include reliable sources. It makes your life easier, it makes life for readers better, and it improves Wikipedia. Everyone benefits. And keep an eye out for systemic bias and avoid it wherever possible. So try and be inclusive in what kind of stuff you're writing about. Aim for a neutral point of view. I appreciate that may be tricky, but boil it down to kind of very dry language, maybe dropping the adjectives where we can, and sticking to that encyclopedic tone. And when it comes to conflict of interest, remember the Batman principle.